There are 3 dark personality types, and most men are completely oblivious to which one is calling the shots in their lives. This isn't just a harmless oversight. It's the reason they're so easily manipulated, cast aside, and forgotten, but the rare few who possess the self-awareness to confront their inner darkness head-on. They're the ones who ultimately triumph. True power resides in those who dare to drop the pretense of goodness and instead master the shadowy forces that truly motivate them. If you're unaware of which dark personality governs your instincts, your emotions, and your ambitions, then your destiny is already sealed. And what's truly heartbreaking is that most men delude themselves into thinking they're strong, when in reality, they're merely emotionally addicted to the fleeting validation of admiration. This is the tragic plight of the first type, the narcissist. The narcissist doesn't genuinely love himself. What he craves is the constant need to be adored by others. He needs to be constantly seen, validated, and applauded. The moment he walks into a room, his mind immediately starts calculating, not in terms of power or opportunity, but in terms of attention. Who's looking his way? Who's not paying attention? Who showered him with praise? Who dared to ignore him? And in this desperate, never-ending performance for validation, he becomes a slave to the perceptions of others. But he's completely blind to this reality. He believes he's simply radiating confidence, exuding charisma, and destined for greatness. He'll even go to great lengths to convince you of his unwavering self-assurance. But deep down, he's paralyzed by one overwhelming fear: the thought of being invisible, of going unnoticed. The narcissist constructs his entire existence around the pursuit of admiration, yet he's perpetually left with a gnawing sense that he's never admired enough. Because lurking beneath all the elaborate performances and carefully constructed facades is something deeply flawed, a fragile sense of pride that can be shattered by a single insult. One instance of rejection, and he's already plotting elaborate schemes of revenge. The narcissist isn't truly strong. He's constantly starving for validation, and the more he feeds on the praise of others, the more insatiable his hunger becomes, desperately needing it to survive. You'll spot him easily in any gathering, always the loudest, most meticulously groomed, and slightly too polished for comfort. He'll greet you with a wide, beaming smile, but his eyes will be constantly scanning the room for any signs of disrespect or disapproval. Shower him with praise, and he'll radiate with confidence. Ignore him, and he'll visibly wither before your eyes. But dare to challenge him, and he'll completely shatter. In that moment, you've witnessed the mask slip, revealing the fragile ego beneath. The narcissist doesn't possess genuine defenses, he only has carefully crafted illusions. And when those illusions finally crack under pressure, he collapses into one of 2 extreme states: uncontrollable rage or profound despair. Neither state is marked by rationality or self-control. He's like an empire built entirely on mirrors. And once the reflection ceases to flatter him, he's willing to burn the whole room down in a desperate attempt to restore it. This is the hidden reason why so many men fail in silence. It's not due to a lack of inherent skills or abilities, but because their egos are far too fragile to withstand the harsh realities of life. One minor setback, and they vanish from the scene. One slight bruise to their pride, and they retreat into a world of fantasy. Because they were never truly warriors, they were merely children trapped in adult bodies, craving the validation of applause instead of pursuing genuine conquest. But make no mistake, the narcissist is still capable of rising to positions of power and influence. In fact, he often does, because he's a master of wearing the perfect mask. He adapts himself to whatever qualities you admire. He becomes the embodiment of what you want to praise. In the realms of politics, entertainment, and leadership, narcissists often ascend the ranks far more quickly than anyone else. Why? Because they desperately need to. While others engage in thoughtful debate, the narcissist is busy seducing. While others carefully hesitate, he's striking a pose. He transforms himself into a mirror reflecting the public's deepest desires. And the crowd, hungry for someone to worship, gladly bestows him with the crown. But this is the cruel paradox of the narcissist's existence. The very thing that elevates him is also what ultimately leads to his downfall. The moment the admiration begins to fade, he begins a slow and agonizing process of self-destruction. Think of all the once revered icons who crumbled into pieces the moment the spotlight dimmed. the powerful leaders who couldn't handle the slightest criticism, the groundbreaking creators who vanished into obscurity the moment the praise stopped flowing. It wasn't genuine failure that broke them, it was their insatiable addiction to being perceived as perfect. This is where the narcissist's condition becomes truly dangerous. Not just for himself, but for everyone in his orbit. Because when the narcissist senses that he's starting to lose admiration, he doesn't simply fade away quietly. He resorts to manipulation, guilt trips, and outright lies. He rewrites history to suit his narrative. He demonizes anyone who dares to stop feeding his insatiable hunger for praise. In personal relationships, he becomes controlling and possessive. In the business world, he becomes vindictive and ruthless. He cannot bear the thought of you moving on, because your attention is the very air he breathes. So, he'll resort to shaming you, charming you, or even attempting to destroy you. Anything to remain the center of attention. And if he can't be worshipped as the hero, he'll readily assume the role of the victim, or even worse, the villain. This isn't a calculated strategy, it's an act of pure desperation. This isn't true power, it's dependency masquerading as dominance. And once you've truly seen it for what it is, you'll start noticing it everywhere. The loudest person in the room. The one who's always meticulously polished. The one who constantly needs to be perceived as special. They're not truly free, they're desperately craving your applause. And they're dying inside without it. And here's the final, devastating truth. Most men who are governed by this personality type never even realize it until it's far too late. They believe they're chasing greatness when, in reality, they're simply chasing compliments. They think they're strong leaders when, in reality, they're merely addicts craving the next hit of praise. And while they're busy constructing a false self for the world to admire, their genuine self is decaying, unnoticed, unloved, and eventually forgotten, because they've spent their entire lives trying to become someone else's ideal. Not once did they pause to ask themselves the crucial question, who am I when no one's watching? This question haunts them, and if they ever do slow down long enough to confront it, it utterly breaks them, because the truth is, the narcissist doesn't truly desire power, he merely wants to appear powerful. And in the end, that carefully crafted illusion becomes his prison. But here's where things take an even darker turn. Some narcissists learn to weaponize their charm, to evolve beyond their basic need for validation. They study the art of attention like a form of warfare. They seduce others not simply to be loved, but to exert control. And when that shift occurs, the narcissist is no longer merely fragile and insecure. He becomes cold, calculated, and strategic, a charming manipulator who wears vulnerability like a suit of armor. And this is how he begins his transformation into something far more sinister. He's evolved past the clumsy, desperate hunger for praise. Now, the narcissist has learned to manipulate and control it. He's no longer a child begging for attention. He's a seasoned performer who understands his audience better than they understand themselves. He's refined, selective, and his charm is now weaponized. But make no mistake, the underlying wound is still there. He doesn't seduce because he desires genuine connection. He seduces because it grants him leverage. Compliments are no longer a form of sustenance, they're a form of currency. He trades them for loyalty, obedience, and even worship. And in this evolved form, the narcissist becomes dangerous not only to himself, but to anyone who mistakes his carefully crafted mask for genuine depth. Because once you believe in his carefully constructed illusion, he owns you. And when he owns you, he feeds, not always publicly or obviously, but subtly, behind every soft smile and gentle voice. He's extracting something from you, admiration, sympathy, envy, submission, all without ever having to raise a single weapon. Because his real weapon is you. He plays the victim masterfully. He'll confess his flaws, but only the ones that make him appear brave or resilient. He'll share his pain, but only in ways that position him as the tragic hero of his own story. He will even admit to past failures, but only the kind that make him seem even stronger for having survived them. This is how the evolved narcissist ensnares you, by offering you just enough truth to seem authentic, just enough vulnerability to seem safe, and just enough charisma to seem magnetic. You lower your guard, you begin to trust him, to admire him, and then, slowly but surely, your own sense of reality begins to shift. You start to feel inferior around him. but you can't quite put your finger on why. You begin questioning yourself more and more. You become addicted to his fleeting approval and terrified of his prolonged silence. And that's precisely where he wants you, uncertain, impressed, and submissive. Because if you ever awaken to the reality of who he truly is, the spell will be broken. But most people never do. They remain locked in the endless orbit of his ego, spinning endlessly around a sun that only shines for itself. They mistake his confidence for genuine superiority. They mistake his captivating storytelling for honest truth. They mistake his performative emotional expression for genuine emotional depth. And they pay the price in silence, constantly wondering why they always feel unseen, unheard, and unworthy next to someone who claims to love them. Because the narcissist doesn't build genuine connections, he builds mirrors. And you are only valuable to him when you reflect something he desperately wants to see in himself. The moment you show him a reflection he doesn't like, your independence, your anger, your strength, he punishes you. Sometimes with distance, sometimes with overt cruelty, sometimes with a sudden and unexplained withdrawal of affection. And each and every time, he frames it as your fault. Because the evolved narcissist is a master of blame shifting. This is what makes him so incredibly difficult to confront. You can't argue with him, he's already rehearsed every possible response. You can't accuse him, he'll twist it around and make it seem like you're the one with the problem. You can't shame him, because he'll use your accusation as further proof that you're the source of all his troubles. And if you ever attempt to leave, he'll transform back into everything you once loved about him. Just long enough to pull you back into his web. He doesn't truly want you, he wants your admiration. He doesn't truly love you, he loves how you made him feel about himself. And when he no longer needs you, he will discard you gently, poetically, sometimes even with tears, but discard you all the same. Because the narcissist isn't here to build a life with you, he's here to build himself up. And you are merely another brick in the carefully constructed image he's projecting to the world. And yet, you'll still miss him. That's the true cruelty of it all. Even when you see him clearly for who he is, even when you understand the intricate mechanisms of his manipulation, even when you finally manage to walk away, something deep inside you will ache. Because the narcissist is an expert in imprinting himself onto your psyche. He'll be the first one to say something no one else ever dared to say. He'll be the only one who ever noticed that one detail you always tried to hide. He'll remember things that no one else remembers. And he'll give you a fleeting taste of being completely and utterly seen before cruelly snatching it away. That is the drug, and once you've tasted it, everyone else will pale in comparison. That's what he counts on. Because even if you hate him, if you still remember him, he still wins. But the greatest tragedy of all is that the narcissist doesn't even know who he truly is. For all the masks he wears, for all the identities he crafts, for all the people he mirrors, the core is hollow. There is no stable sense of self, just a constantly shifting array of images, desperately trying to catch a fleeting glimpse of something real. He is both the master and the prisoner of his own elaborate performance. And eventually, when the crowd disperses, the applause fades away, and no one is left watching, he's left with nothing but silence. And that silence terrifies him, because in that silence there is no reflection, just the haunting question, who am I if no one's looking? And he has no answer. So, he starts performing all over again. Another audience, another stage, another mirror, always running from the stillness that would force him to confront the truth. And now, you must ask yourself, does this type reside within you? Are your goals truly your own? Or are they merely bait for applause? Do you act for yourself? Or for the idealized version of yourself that you hope others will admire? Do you crave genuine growth? Or merely the asterisk appearance of growth? Because if you lie to yourself here, you'll never escape the narcissist's cage. You'll spend your entire life performing, pleasing, posing, and slowly dying inside. But if you answer honestly, something rare and transformative happens. You stop acting and you start becoming. But the path to that clarity is brutal and unforgiving. Because once you destroy one illusion, another, even darker one, waits beneath it. Most people never make it past the narcissist phase. Their entire lives are lost in the endless performance, addicted to admiration, enslaved by their own image. But a rare few manage to evolve. They stop needing to be admired and start needing to win. These men are no longer chasing fleeting praise, They're chasing something far more potent: control. And in this cold and calculating evolution, the second dark personality type is born, the Machiavellian. He doesn't care if you love him. He doesn't even care if you fear him. He only cares that you obey him, without question. While the narcissist desperately craves attention, the Machiavellian craves leverage. He studies people like intricate blueprints. He speaks only when it serves to move the game pieces on the board. He trusts absolutely no one, because he understands that the game isn't about being liked, it's about being untouchable. The Machiavellian personality is built on one core: unwavering belief. People are merely tools. They can be used, sharpened, broken, and ultimately replaced. He doesn't harbor any hatred towards them. He simply doesn't romanticize them. Emotions are liabilities. Loyalty is always negotiable. Kindness is merely camouflage. And truth? Truth is a weapon to be wielded or sheathed, depending on which course of action will lead to victory. You'll find him lurking behind the scenes, always in the shadows. He's the advisor, the strategist, the silent force that subtly moves empires. He rarely speaks first, preferring to wait, observe, and meticulously measure you before you even realize you're being studied. And when he finally does speak, it's never a spontaneous reaction, it's a carefully calculated move, designed to shift the balance of power, not to stir up emotions. This man never loses his temper, because he doesn't value anything enough to allow himself to become emotionally invested in it. He's already prepared for betrayal, already accounted for potential failure, and has already predicted your inevitable disloyalty. He plays long games, quiet games, games with no audience. While others loudly announce their goals to the world, he announces nothing. He allows others to speak freely, carefully recording every word they utter. He lets others boast and brag while he silently gathers valuable data. And by the time you finally realize he's dangerous, he already owns half the board. That is the Machiavellian advantage. You see absolutely nothing until it's far too late. Because unlike the attention-seeking narcissist, the Machiavellian understands one fundamental truth: visibility is vulnerability. And the man who remains unseen is the man who ultimately survives. You'll sense it when you're in his presence, a strange, unsettling coldness, but not necessarily unkind. He's capable of laughing, joking, and even exuding a certain charm. But something essential is always missing. He never truly gives himself away. His compliments never reveal genuine admiration. His anger never reveals any underlying weakness. His stories never reveal his true strategy. You'll leave the conversation thinking you've forged a meaningful connection. But you haven't. He's merely given you a carefully crafted version of himself that he wanted you to see. All while learning everything he needed to know about you. And that's the core secret of the Machiavellian. He's always, relentlessly, gathering power, not through brute force or charisma, but through strategic positioning. And once he's amassed enough power, he doesn't engage in direct conflict, he sets traps. You'll suddenly find yourself outmaneuvered, outthought, and cornered, and you never even saw it coming. But here's what truly separates the Machiavellian from the naive, small-time manipulator: restraint. He doesn't act impulsively. He doesn't resort to force when deception will accomplish the same goal. He doesn't burn bridges unless the resulting fire clears the path ahead. Every act of betrayal is meticulously timed. Every alliance is conditional. Every single word is loaded with hidden meaning. This isn't chaos, it's precision. And that's precisely what makes him so terrifying. He's not motivated by cruelty, he's driven by efficiency. If hurting you will move the pieces on the board in his favor, he'll do it with elegance and grace. If helping you will garner your loyalty, he'll do it with unwavering sincerity. You'll never truly know which side of him you're facing, because he's not actually on any side at all. He's playing a game that transcends the board entirely, watching everyone else scramble while he calmly decides which final move will end the game in his favor. And yet, even this seemingly invincible type is not immune to danger. The Machiavellian may master others, but he risks succumbing to one fatal weakness: believing he's always the smartest person in the room. Arrogance cloaked in strategy is still arrogance. And once he begins to underestimate his opponents, once he becomes convinced that his traps are infallible, once he places too much trust in the perceived superiority of his own mind, he inevitably slips. Because even a perfectly crafted plan, once revealed, becomes a target, and the greatest power of all is always the power you keep hidden. This is the central paradox of the Machiavellian. To win, he must never fully reveal his hand. But if he plays the game for too long, becoming too cold, too detached, he forgets what the ultimate purpose of the game even was. And in that detachment, his carefully constructed empire begins to rot from within. The question now isn't whether you know someone like this, it's whether you are in the process of becoming him. Have you begun to view people as mere levers to be manipulated instead of as living, breathing human beings? Do you find yourself observing far more than you speak? Do you feel detached, calm, almost surgical, even amidst chaos? And more importantly, do you like it? Because if you're in the process of evolving from a narcissist into a Machiavellian, you may feel stronger, smarter, and even unstoppable. But be warned, this type comes at a heavy price. No genuine connection, no inner peace, no true alliances, only a relentless pursuit of advantage and a constant struggle for survival. And once you've chosen that path, there's no turning back to innocence, only a descent into the next level of darkness. He doesn't trust you, he doesn't trust anyone, and that's what keeps him sharp and focused. The Machiavellian wakes up already playing the game before he even checks his phone or utters a single word. Every day is a battlefield, not of physical violence, but of strategic positioning. He doesn't need to scream to inspire fear, he simply needs to know what you truly desire. Because the man who understands your deepest desires owns your decisions, and the Machiavellian has perfected the art of deciphering those desires. He studies the people around him like a scientist studies specimens in a lab. He learns their insecurities, their hungers, their hidden guilts, not in order to heal them, but in order to exploit them. His relationships are merely blueprints for manipulation. His favors are carefully disguised traps. His silence is a powerful strategic tool. And when the time comes to strike, he doesn't raise his voice, he simply pulls a single thread. And the entire carefully constructed illusion collapses. This man understands what most men will never grasp. Control is far more powerful than affection. And influence is far more lasting than intimidation. If the narcissist needs to be adored, and the brute simply needs to be obeyed, the Machiavellian only needs to be obeyed without resistance. That's what makes him so incredibly dangerous. You'll genuinely believe that it was your own idea to submit. You'll think you trust him because you've consciously chosen to do so. But every word you heard, every compliment you received, every story he told was meticulously engineered, not for your approval, but for your compliance. He doesn't need to overtly convince you. He simply needs to construct an environment where resistance feels utterly exhausting and agreement feels completely natural. And by the time you realize you've been skillfully led into his web, you'll be too deeply entangled to ever escape. But this isn't about petty manipulation. The Machiavellian doesn't waste his precious time on trivial emotional games. His vision is far grander than mere attention or revenge. He wants empire, complete control over the entire board, not just a single piece. And that's why he often rises to positions of immense power. In the realms of business, politics, and war, the cold and calculating strategist is always lurking behind the throne, if not actually seated upon it himself. He calculates not just people, but entire systems. He identifies the weakest hinge in the overall structure and applies precisely targeted pressure. He doesn't need a throne to rule, he just needs the person on the throne to owe him a favor. And that's the true genius of the Machiavellian approach. While others chase power directly and openly, he acquires it indirectly, through carefully cultivated debts, closely guarded secrets, and strategic silence. He doesn't fight to rule the room. He makes the person who already rules the room ask him what to do next. But here's the hidden curse of this personality type. No one truly knows him. And that profound isolation, while seemingly granting him immense power, ultimately becomes its own inescapable prison. Because once everyone around you is merely a pawn to be manipulated, no one is ever truly close. You begin to question the loyalty of others, even when it's completely genuine. You anticipate betrayal, even when it's not on the horizon. You become addicted to outsmarting everyone around you, and consumed by paranoia that someone might be attempting to do the same to you. So, you never truly relax, you never fully trust, you never stop watching. Even in moments of victory, there's a constant undercurrent of tension. Even in times of peace, You're already meticulously planning your next move. Because the Machiavellian has tragically confused mastery with meaning. He's mastered the game, but lost sight of the ultimate purpose of playing it in the first place. This is where the dark shift begins. Some Machiavellians eventually grow weary of pretending, of constantly performing, of always waiting for the opportune moment to strike. And in this state of profound fatigue, they abandon strategy altogether. What rises in its place is not calculated planning, but pure, unadulterated chaos. Coldness transforms into outright cruelty. Precision turns into wanton destruction. The master manipulator becomes the destroyer. Because eventually, even the Machiavellian grows bored of simply pulling the strings. He craves the sensation of feeling something real. But genuine connection is now utterly impossible for him. So, he seeks intense sensation instead, the thrill of risk, the sting of pain, the intoxicating rush of power for power's sake. This is how the strategist ultimately devolves into the third dark personality type. The most feared of them all. Before that irreversible descent, you must honestly ask yourself, are you already here? Are you playing the game so skillfully that you've completely stopped questioning why you started playing it in the first place? Are you isolating yourself for protection? Or because you no longer believe in anything but control? Have your relationships become mere transactions? Has your entire identity become nothing more than a carefully crafted strategy? Because if you're already living in the mind of the Machiavellian, then you already know how it ends: cold victory, silent rooms, no trust, no peace, just a mind that never stops turning, and a world that never feels safe enough to allow it to rest. And from here, the next phase isn't a step higher, it's a plunge deeper into something far more primal, more ruthless, and far less human. He doesn't need your approval. He doesn't need your loyalty. He doesn't even need your attention. The third type has moved beyond games entirely. The psychopath doesn't engage in careful planning like the Machiavellian, nor does he crave constant admiration like the narcissist. He acts on pure impulse, pure will, pure dominance, unburdened by guilt, shame, or hesitation, while others are painstakingly calculating risks. He's already in motion, and by the time they even process what's happening, it's already over. The psychopath is utterly unconcerned with his reputation. He isn't weighed down by fear, regret, or self-doubt, and that's precisely what makes him so deadly. He is the embodiment of detachment, not in a spiritual sense, but in a purely surgical one. A man who feels nothing except the fleeting thrill of power when others flinch. You won't necessarily recognize him at first glance. He doesn't always outwardly project an image of chaos and destruction. In fact, he's often calm, almost unnervingly so. While others rage and panic, he watches with eyes that are cold, fixed, and utterly unreadable. He doesn't over-explain himself. He doesn't offer justifications for his actions. He simply moves through problems, people, and consequences as if they don't even exist. And to him, they genuinely don't, because conscience is a dead weight. Emotion is a restrictive leash. The past is completely irrelevant. Only the next move matters. That's why he can lie without batting an eye, inflict pain without feeling guilt, and destroy without even a moment's pause. It's not personal. It's not even motivated by malice. It's pure, unadulterated instinct. The predator doesn't hate the prey. He simply doesn't care if it bleeds. You'll find him wherever there's chaos, not hiding from it, but walking straight through it. While the narcissist freezes without applause, and the Machiavellian patiently waits for the perfect moment to strike, the psychopath creates the moment. He thrives in fire, in unpredictability, and in war, and the more unhinged the world becomes, the more powerful he feels. He doesn't panic when the rules are broken, he breaks them first. And this grants him an advantage that terrifies weaker men. He is willing to go further, to cross lines, to ignore laws, and to silence his own morality. Because to him, limits are not ethical boundaries, they're merely optional suggestions. And most people's inherent restraint is just another weapon for him to exploit. But this isn't born of stupidity. The psychopath is not a mindless brute. He's calculated, focused, and often highly intelligent. He knows precisely what you expect him to feel, and he flawlessly mimics it. He can say all the right words, display all the appropriate facial expressions, and even shed tears if necessary. But it's all a carefully constructed performance. Nothing genuinely moves him, nothing sticks. Because to feel is to be vulnerable. And he surgically removed that part of himself long ago. Perhaps through some traumatic experience. Or perhaps through a deliberate choice. It doesn't matter. What matters is that he is now ungoverned by conscience. And this allows him to do things that others simply cannot. To walk directly into the eye of the storm unshaken. And to bend it to his will. Not because he's brave, but because he simply doesn't care if he dies doing it. This is why the psychopath often rises to become the king when empires crumble. When the old rules no longer protect the weak. When institutions collapse. And when fear spreads like wildfire. He rises to seize the opportunity. Because everyone else is paralyzed by the potential consequences. But he experiences none. While others are frantically negotiating, he simply takes what he wants. While others are hesitating, he strikes with decisive force. And even those who clearly see him for what he is often still choose to follow him. Not out of love or loyalty, but out of awe and fascination. Because deep down, people admire what they fear. And they fear what they cannot predict. That is the psychopath's dark gift. You never truly know if he'll spare you. Or if he'll smile as he ends you. But there's always a cost. The psychopath gains unparalleled control. But he loses his very humanity in the process. He might win the war. But he'll walk off the battlefield alone. He might build the most magnificent empire the world has ever seen. But he'll sit on the throne in silence. Because no one trusts him. No one loves him. And ultimately, no one stays. He is a storm that passes through, leaving a trail of bodies in its wake, and then moves on completely untouched. His name may echo throughout history, but no one will genuinely grieve him when he's gone. And the truth is, he simply doesn't care. That's what makes him so utterly tragic. He doesn't want to be saved. He doesn't even believe in the very concept of salvation. He only believes in strength, in dominance, in the raw, merciless force of will that bends the world to its knees. Once you fully embrace that mindset, it becomes almost impossible to ever truly come back from it. Yet, despite this, many still try to wear the mask. They try to mimic the posture, the coldness, the piercing stare, but merely pretending to be a psychopath is a world away from actually being one. When real chaos descends and truly hits the fan, most men will flinch. They'll beg for mercy. They'll ultimately break under the pressure. But the true psychopath, that rare breed, walks forward completely unaffected, as if nothing happened. And this isn't because he's inherently fearless, but because he genuinely believes he has absolutely nothing left to lose. The moment you stop fearing the consequences of your actions, you become capable of absolutely anything. The psychopath doesn't flinch because fear itself requires imagination. And he has long ago stopped imagining pain, loss, or any negative consequence. He's moved beyond the typical human narrative, transcended guilt, and severed the emotional strings that paralyze most men in moments of crisis. And this crucial absence of hesitation gives him a truly terrible advantage: speed. While others analyze and overthink, the psychopath acts decisively and without pause. While others worry themselves sick about potential outcomes, he's out there actively creating them, shaping reality to his twisted will. Not carefully, and certainly not methodically, but with a raw, explosive force that destabilizes everything in his path and leaves chaos in its wake. Make no mistake, this isn't simple recklessness, it's a strange and terrifying form of freedom. A freedom that most men can't even begin to comprehend because they're still firmly tethered to shame, to painful memories, and to the constant need for social approval. But the psychopath severed those ties a long time ago. He burned those bridges, and in that severance, he became untouchable, or so it seems on the surface. But don't ever mistake his inherent power for genuine success. The psychopath is not a builder. He's not a long-term strategist. He doesn't care about legacy or leaving his mark on the world. He doesn't negotiate. He doesn't nurture. And he certainly doesn't preserve anything. He dominates, then simply moves on to the next conquest. He thrives in disruption, not in creation, in the thrill of conquest, not in the mundane responsibilities of governance. This is precisely why so many of them ultimately burn out in spectacular fashion. Not from actual defeat, but from sheer, unadulterated boredom. Once there are no more enemies left to break, no more lines left to cross, no more chaos left to feed on, the thrill simply disappears, And without that constant thrill, there's absolutely nothing left for him. Because unlike the Machiavellian, who meticulously calculates every move for the long term, or the narcissist, who desperately craves constant validation and a sense of significance, the psychopath doesn't look beyond the present moment. His life is nothing more than a string of nows, each one louder, bloodier, and more defiant than the last. Still, despite these inherent limitations, some of them rise to truly terrifying heights in society. CEOs, generals, cult leaders, crime lords, they command not through inspiration or genuine leadership, but through the sheer force of their will. And not always physical force, often it's psychological manipulation at its finest. Their gaze alone can freeze an entire room. Their calculated silence can break even the strongest man. Their very presence alters the atmosphere because everyone around them feels it. This is someone who simply doesn't care about rules. Not your rules, not society's rules, and certainly not the rules of any gods. And in a world largely built on shared delusions, morality, empathy, consequence, the man who steps boldly outside those illusions holds unimaginable power. The power to act without any restraint, to make decisions without any remorse, to destroy without even blinking an eye. That is the psychopath's kingdom. Cold, absolute, and godless. But here is where the dangerous delusion of envy often begins. Many weak men secretly admire this type of individual. They mistakenly believe that true strength means being feared by others. That in order to be truly free, they must feel nothing at all. That in order to win at all costs, they must become utterly ruthless. But they fundamentally don't understand the devastating price that must be paid. The psychopath doesn't actively choose this path. In a very real sense, he is this path. His emptiness is not some kind of asset or superpower. It's a debilitating condition. And it comes with a quiet torment that most people simply can't see or comprehend. Disconnection from others, a fundamental inability to truly love, an inability to genuinely feel joy, and an inability to ever truly belong anywhere. He may seemingly rule the room, but he'll never actually feel at home in it. He may break every single enemy that crosses his path, but he'll never feel any sense of peace because there is no peace without genuine attachment to others. And he's already ruthlessly killed everything within himself that could ever possibly form an attachment. Even worse, when the psychopath inevitably fails, he implodes, not with a fiery burst of emotion, but with a terrifying void. He doesn't spiral downward like the narcissist. He doesn't strategically recalibrate like the Machiavellian. He simply ceases to function in any meaningful way because he never truly learned how to suffer, how to patiently wait, or how to rebuild from the ground up. He only knows how to dominate others. And when that domination ultimately fails, absolutely nothing is left. No sense of community, no purpose in life, no personal identity, just a cold, deafening silence that is even deeper than death because he's still technically alive. This is the final, devastating cost of the third type. When he wins, he stands utterly alone. When he loses, he simply vanishes from the face of the earth. Either way, the story always ends in complete isolation. And now you must ask yourself one final, crucial question. Which type truly rules you? Which mask have you been wearing for so long that you've completely forgotten it was ever a mask in the first place? Have you been constantly chasing praise and validation like the narcissist, naively believing that endless applause would somehow make you real? Have you been meticulously moving pieces on the chessboard like the Machiavellian, desperately convinced that control ultimately equals safety? Or have you perhaps become the psychopath, detached, ruthlessly efficient, seemingly untouchable, but ultimately empty inside? Most men are primarily ruled by one type, strongly influenced by another, and pretending to themselves that they are none of the above. But the only real path to any kind of genuine power is brutal honesty with yourself. Because when you finally admit which dark instinct truly governs you, you don't suddenly become weak. Instead, you become acutely aware. And awareness is always the essential beginning of mastery. Not to foolishly suppress the darkness within, but to strategically direct it. Not to pretend that you're inherently good, but to become sovereign over your own shadow self. That is the rarest and most potent power of all. The man who sees the narcissist within himself and then ruthlessly disciplines it. The man who sees the Machiavellian and strategically sharpens it. The man who sees the psychopath and effectively chains it. He is certainly not innocent. He is certainly not soft. And he is definitely not safe. But he is fully awake. And in a world filled with sleeping men, he is by far the most dangerous type of all. If you've made it this far, it's because a part of you already instinctively knows this profound truth. You are undeniably ruled by a shadow, whether you readily admit it or not. Narcissist, Machiavellian, psychopath, one of them already subtly whispers through your deepest instincts, insidiously shapes your crucial choices, and ultimately determines your inescapable fate. Now, tell me honestly in the comments below, are you truly ready to face the mask that you've worn for so long that you've forgotten it was ever a mask? Are you genuinely willing to master the darkness that subtly governs you instead of being utterly consumed by it? If this message has deeply touched you, if it has truly resonated with you on a fundamental level, then write boldly in the comments, "I master my shadow." Let's see how many people here are genuinely ready to turn their newfound awareness into real, tangible power. And don't forget to keep watching for the next video, it's important. Much more so than you can possibly imagine right now. See you there.